Can you hear me? No? Can you hear me? Yeah, great. So, I have the unenviable task of talking to a group of people who have just finished their lunch. So, obviously, the brain and body is in a shutdown mode. But I'm hoping that, we can kind of reverse that process uh, a little bit. And for that, uh, not only I, but even you guys need to do something that's a little active. Uh, just for me to get a sense, okay, can I request everybody who is doing D2C products, okay, to just stand up in their seats? No raising hands, please stand up. So this is all D2C products, okay? Uh, Everybody who is selling on marketplaces, please sit down. So those people who are left standing are people who are doing D2C product but using their own channels. They've not gone to marketplaces yet. Okay? Or doing both? Okay, great, great. So both also sit down. Okay. Super. Thanks. I just wanted to get a sense. Who are the people who are doing B2B? Wow. Okay. Equally split, roughly, I think. So, B2B people who are doing software, okay, software products, please sit down. Okay. B2B other services, not software, but other services. Okay. So, the rest of you are actually doing B2B products? Some yeses, nos? B2B2C. B2B2C also is fine. Okay. B2B2C, I think of it as B2C. So, great. Have I missed anybody else? Has anybody not gotten a chance to stand up? Thank you. Please sit down. Yeah. No, I think everybody's covered. Great. That was actually an excuse to get you all to kind of get some energy back so that you stand up. Yeah, and I'm not the only guy standing and everybody else is sitting and relaxing. So a very quick introduction to myself. I studied at IIM Calcutta in the early to mid 90s. And after that, and I did my engineering before that at a college called BIT Meshra. And after that, I've largely been in sales and marketing roles throughout my 26, 27-year career. Started my career with Cadbury, which was very well known for marketing in those days, late 90s. Then moved to a B2B company called Tata Interactive. Spent about 6 years in the States selling software. So sold chocolates for the first 6 years of my life. Then I kind of sold software for the next 6 years. But after that, for the last 15 odd years, I've been in e-commerce and largely e-commerce marketplaces. Started my e-commerce journey with eBay in India. And eBay, as you all know, was a very, very large marketplace, continues to be a very large marketplace globally, though their India operations have been sold to Flipkart, and they still have an export-oriented operation. And after that, I've spent the last 9.5 years with Pepperfry. When I joined Pepperfry, they were just about a year old. And when I left them early last year, they had finished 10 years. So I spent about 9.5 years with Pepperfry. I've seen the journey of Pepperfry go from an annual turnover of about 35 crores sales to about 1,000 crores in the previous year. The marketplace sales value. So I've seen that journey. How does 30 become 100? How does 100 become 200? How does 200 become 500? And it keeps getting difficult, especially if you want to do business profitably. Okay, if you have a lot of VC money, and Pepperfry had a lot of VC money at some times, and sometimes it didn't. You have a lot of VC money, you can grow, at 200% for 10 years. So you can reach like 20,000 crores, 30,000 crores like Flipkart without really worrying about profitability. So the only focus is scale. Okay, so there are different types of journeys that happen. My journey or my experience is the 30 CR to 1000 CR kind of an experience. And in the early phase, only worried about growth, not looking at profitability at all. Later phases, as the industry matured, a lot of focus on profitability. So how you scale a company with profitability is again very, very, very different. I understand that a lot of your journey, probably I don't understand. I don't know how many of you are at a 30 crore level. Maybe not anybody. So honestly, the journey that you saw, I probably haven't seen. But I'm happy to talk to you about the future, what your future could be. And I'm hoping that I can cover some of those things, in my conversation today. So let me actually kind of give you a quick, you might have all heard of Pepperfry, but let me kind of give you a 10-15 minute kind of a journey, of the Pepperfry business. And I'm hoping that some of it will resonate with some of you, and there are some lessons that you can take home in terms of, hey, this is something that could work with me too, or maybe this is a trend that I could have looked at, and so on and so forth. So Pepperfry was started in 2012 by a bunch of people who had all been in eBay. Okay. And these people had been in eBay from as early as 2005 to 2012, 7-8 years journey in eBay. So e-commerce, there was a very, very strong e-commerce understanding. Okay, there are certain processes in e-commerce. So the very, very strong e-commerce understanding. There's a very, very strong marketplace understanding. When you run a marketplace, it's very different from running a D2C brand. Okay, and there was a very strong marketplace understanding. But just knowing how a particular business model works, marketplace business model, or knowing how a particular sector works, which is e-commerce, is not, it's the inspiration is not enough, or it could be enough, but by standalone, it doesn't mean that, Pepperfry should have been created, or any new e-commerce startup should have been created just because people have some experience. I think what enabled, a launch of a slew of e-commerce firms, Myntra, Jabong, Healthcart, 1MG, Pepperfry, Urban Ladder, Lenskart, all of these players, if you go back and look at their history, one or two might have started in 2010, but most of these people started in 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay, so after 2010, there was a period when all of these companies started. Do you know what happened in 2010 in India? 2-3 things happened. One thing that actually many of you are fairly young, I don't know whether you realize it, but 2010 was when India actually moved into 3G that's available on phones. Okay. E-commerce existed in India for the 10 years before that. There was a brand called Fab Mall, which was started in 1999. There were e-commerce platforms such as Rediff Shopping or India Times Shopping or India Plaza. Okay, all of these existed from 2000 to 2008, 2009, 2010. Okay, eBay existed in India between 2005 to 2015. Bazi was a company that was started in 2000. Some of you might have heard of the term Bazi.com, which was an auction-based platform. That existed between 2000 to 2005. But all of those were experiments. Because number one, India did not have internet. Okay, it had internet. Most people accessed internet in their offices, that too on very slow speeds. Okay, so internet was a concept. The main use of internet in an average person's life was email. Okay, and sending information, maybe a few systems, maybe a few CRM systems or ERP systems, etc. That's what people were using it for. But personal usage of the internet was highly limited. Firstly, smartphones came into the country only around 2008, 2009. Okay, 3G came into the country only around 2010, 11. Otherwise, speeds were abysmal. Home connections were all dial-ups. Okay, broadband came into the country for homes again around that time. So the point that I'm trying to drive is, why did e-commerce, so many new e-commerce companies get launched in that 2010 to 14 timeframe? Because there was fundamentally a technology shift that happened. Okay, and the technology shift of availability and access to good high-speed internet at people's homes or in people's hands, because the smartphone revolution also just took off around that time. Around the 2008 smartphone was introduced, low-priced SKUs started coming in 2011-12, a lot of the Chinese suppliers, etc. And that's when it happened. So this is a fundamental technology shift in terms of 3G, in terms of access to internet, in terms of smartphones. A couple of other shifts happened. One was in 2010, so you could always use a credit card. Even before 2010, you could use a credit card online. Okay. In India, if you had a credit card or a debit card, actually not so much debit card, you could use a credit card on some payment gateways to make payments. So electronic payments as a concept existed in the country, but there was no safeguard. Okay. I used to be part of eBay between 2008 to 2011 and 2012. Okay. And I know that a lot of people in India at that time, roughly 30 million credit cards existed, okay, but less than 10% of them were using it for online transactions. People wanted to do COD, okay, because they did not feel secure that, they can actually pay online, okay. In 2010-2011, RBI introduced a concept called two-factor authentication. The whole OTP thing, actually it became OTP later, but it was, in the initial phases, it was a second password that you gave. So you had the credit card details, your name, your credit card number, your expiry date, your CVV, okay? But RBI introduced one more layer of security, saying a personalized OTP that you know that you have set along with your bank, okay? That actually enabled electronic payments to pick up, okay? And what is an e-commerce firm if, an important thing like payments is actually happening, by COD, it's happening offline. The e-commerce experience is everything from finding to discovery to selection to purchase to payment has to happen on a digital platform. That's when it's e-commerce. So that started happening because people started feeling safer. They said they could use their credit card, and subsequently that payment, debit cards got included, and OTP got introduced as a two-factor authentication, or the second factor of safety, and usage of electronic payments took off. And all this happened roughly 10 years ago, okay, 10, 12 years back. And that's why so many e-commerce firms came into the country. The point I'm saying is that there was a technology shift that happened, okay. So how many of you, in whichever field you're working, what is the technology shift that you are capturing? Okay, what is the technology shift that's going to happen in your industry, in your product? Okay, something where some technology, and the technology need not be just internet technologies. It could be something in production. It could be something in quality. Okay, something that can shift your business. Okay, the second thing that changed was payments. In a way, it is a technology shift, but more importantly, it was actually a regulatory shift. RBI introducing a new concept, and that kind of shifted the opportunity. So in each of your industry, whether it's a regulatory shift, whether it's a consumer behavior shift, whether it's a technology shift that is happening, if you're able to predict it, if you're able to understand your industry so well that you know what's coming up next, then you can be early in jumping onto the trend, whether you're starting a company or pivoting your company or scaling your company. So I wanted to kind of talk about that as like, one of the things in general for e-commerce. The second thing I wanted to touch upon a little bit was that Pepperfry focused, so shifting from e-commerce to Pepperfry specifically, Pepperfry focused on home as a category. Okay, so when e-commerce started globally, it started with books with Amazon. Okay, from books it moved to electronics. Okay, from electronics, so for a very long time, if you look at data in India, even as late as 2013, 90% of the value of e-commerce transactions were electronics. Mobile phones, laptops. That's it. This was 90%. On Flipkart, Amazon launched only in late 2013. But even if you look at Amazon's first year, 2014, 90% was electronics, 10% was all other categories put together. Okay. But slowly after electronics, fashion came online. Okay. Within fashion also, if you look at the early categories were very standardized products, t-shirts, shoes, and so on. Less ethnic wear, okay, less designer stuff. But they also came on eventually. It was around the time that Pepperfry started, when fashion had just, that remaining 10% was fashion, okay. Around that time, but there was almost 0% home products. Maybe a small few home decor items, okay, but definitely not furniture, okay, definitely not lamps and lighting and so on. And when the total transactions online in this country was exactly zero in this category, 3 or 4 companies took the bet and jumped in 2012 into the home products category. There was Urban Ladder, there was Fab Furnish, there was Pepperfry, and they started. And at that point in time when it started, the total number of transactions happening online, and these were all online companies. Nobody had stores, nobody was what you call omnichannel, okay. So people believed in it, okay. Luckily there was funding available. Those were heydays of funding, okay. If you had the right kind of team, the right kind of idea, people kind of, if you had a track record, okay, you were either a consultant or you had some fancy education or you had a lot of experience or something. People were just betting on that. They were not betting on the business, investors. So, but people invested. All these are venture-backed companies, and there was no market. There was no online market. But the belief was that the offline market is large enough. It's 10 billion, 15 billion, 20 billion, and some portion of it, 10% of it will move online in 10 years, okay. So if you look at home products as a category, furniture, furnishings, lamps and lighting, home decor, kitchen items, all these put together, the number is anybody's guess. It's definitely north of 15 billion, okay, 15 eights are 120, 120,000 crores, okay, and up to as high as 25 billion, which whatever makes it 25 into 8, 200,000 crores, okay. Even if 10% of it moves online, okay, so even if 20,000 crores move online and you as a company can get 20% of 20%, okay, 20% of 10%, you still can build a 3,000-4,000 crore company. So that was the belief, and that was what is called, you must have heard this term either, if not during this workshop or at some other point in time, the whole addressable market opportunity. And that was the belief, but there were no transactions happening online. And that's when this company was set up. The specific belief that we at Pepperfry had was that one of the things that we did when we started looking at where to source merchants to sell on the site, we were not manufacturers. We weren't manufacturing anything. We all considered ourselves digital marketers or e-commerce operators. So we're all marketers. I have no background in furniture. Nobody in my team had. The founders did not have. The founders were from eBay. They were either operations folks or marketing folks or business development folks. Nobody from the domain. So we needed to go out and find merchants to come onto the site. That's when we realized a bigger opportunity. We were still toying with what to do. That's when we came up with the opportunity. We realized that India is a big export hub for solid wood furniture. Okay. In furniture, there is MDF, there is solid wood, there is obviously steel, plastic, etc. India is a big export hub for solid wood furniture. Most of it was made in Rajasthan. 99% of it was made in Rajasthan, and almost 95-99% of Indian exports of solid wood items happened from Jodhpur, Jaipur, Churu, Ratangad, those areas. But what had happened was that China used to be very, very good for MDF furniture, China, Malaysia. But in that time frame, in the 2008 to 10 time frame after the global pandemic, China also moved into solid wood. Okay. And then the Indian merchants were kind of unable to compete with those price points. So what happened was there was a lot of merchants with lots of expertise in doing solid wood work, which was largely export oriented, okay, who were not getting orders because the global competitiveness changed. Okay. So that was a supply side phenomenon, a supply side opportunity. Empty capacity, skill set to make items for the global market. Okay. Around that same time, if you think what was happening with Indians as a consuming class, let's talk 2010, 2012, 2013, 2015, there's a big shift in the number of Indians, who and how they shop, what do they like, whether it was the content that they were watching on all the OTTs, whether it was all the holidays that they were taking, whether it was to Southeast Asia or Europe or wherever, Indian consuming class, and at this point in time, I limit myself to the top 10 cities and the top 20% of the top 10 cities, which is a big number because India is so populous. Okay, so even the top 20% of the top 10 cities would be easily like a 15 to 20 million kind of a number, 1 to 2 crores. Okay, if you look at the top 10 cities. So we said it's a very large market. You don't need to sell everything to India in the first place. You don't need to sell to 140 crores. If you have a product that will appeal to 1 crore people, 50 lakh people, it's a great market. Okay, you don't have to think that you have to capture the entire market. So we said that these are Indians who are traveling abroad, they're seeing global trends, their lifestyle is changing, they are now largely moving away from bungalows to independent homes, into flats, into gated communities in the top 10 cities in the country. Their tastes are global, what they watch is global, how they dress is global. But why is their home looking like their father's home? Okay, not much innovation in terms of what the carpenters were providing, very little innovation in terms of what the stores were providing, and if they were fancy showrooms, they were outrageously priced. We saw a consumer opportunity here in terms of a globally aware audience who's ready to try global trends, global kinds of products. We had a supply side of exporters who didn't have a global market, but they had the skill set to create global products. And we said that, this is an opportunity to bridge them using digital, because all these 2 crore, 3 crore people are all digital. Okay, they're now been shopping on, let's say, Flipkart and Myntra for 2-3 years each. Okay, so we don't have to change their behavior. There's 3G already, like I talked about. There's payment safety, like I talked about. Okay, so we said we don't have to change their behavior entirely. We don't have to introduce e-commerce to them. They're already familiar with e-commerce. We just need to tell them that, hey, I know you're buying that 1,500 rupee t-shirt or 3,000 rupee sneaker. Okay, will you buy a 8,000 rupee coffee table? Okay, and eventually maybe a 20,000 rupee bed, and ideally in 50,000 rupee sofa. Okay, it was just, it was obviously a very tough journey, but that was really the opportunity. So there was a technology shift, there was a regulatory shift, there was a supply side opportunity, let's call it a shift, there was a consumer side opportunity. Okay, so I think those things kind of cemented our decision to kind of start. So I want you to, whatever lessons or examples you can take away from this, whether it's center shifts, whether it is in terms of how much market. Initially when we started, like I said, we were very happy to target just 1 crore customers. In fact, when we set up our initial supply chain, we were saying Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi, iske bahar bechna hi nahi hai. We want to actually make a dent in these markets to start with. These are the 3 biggest cities in the country. These have the most affluent people, most aware people. Why run after the entire market? So we focused on a small market, for that ambition. So that's another kind of learning in terms of building small and then looking to expand. So today, obviously, Pepperfry gets its business from 500 cities. It has the ability to deliver and install in 500 cities. It's still very heavily skewed, but originally the top 3 cities used to be 90% of our sale. Today, the top 3 cities is 40% of our sale. Okay, so obviously it has rest of the, and they're all growing. So basically it means the rest of India has caught up and gone ahead. Okay, for our business. So you can start small, but you can become very big. That's not a problem. Okay. The other big thing that, and actually Subhrangshu talked about it a lot, and I appreciate it a lot, was that when you're starting something new, education becomes extremely important. Education, information becomes extremely important, because you assume, because you are in that industry, because you're making a certain product, you're dealing with a certain sector, you think that everybody knows this. I know so much detail, people know about this, but that doesn't happen. Okay, people generally are, in India, you can take this chance that whatever you think okay, as an entrepreneur, and not as a casual customer, as an entrepreneur, okay, the consumer knows far less. And it's your job to bring the consumer equal to you. Okay, when the consumer feels empowered and knowledgeable to be equal to you, that's when you can make a transaction with the customer, or you can give a good experience to the customer. If you try to sell from a position of power, it doesn't work. Okay, so the next most important thing that we needed to do was we needed to educate. We needed to educate both the supply side, and the supply side is all the merchants who are coming. Like I said, we are not manufacturers. We work with other merchants, other manufacturers, and work with the buy side. And the next focus of the organization was entirely education. Okay, so what did we need to educate the supplier about? A lot of our suppliers, while they were making export orders, those export orders were made on the basis of a contract. An American company or a British company would come and say, give me 500 pieces of a chair. These are my specifications. Okay, and that's how they did it. They never, built their specs from ground up. Okay, they did not do design. They knew how to do it, but they did not do any documentation around design. They did not even take photographs of their own products. Okay, and now they do. There is 10 years worth of education has gone into this sector, but on day one there wasn't. Okay, so we needed to work with them to create spec sheets. We needed to work with them to take photographs. We needed to work with them to actually convert that photographs and spec sheets into what we call a great product description. Okay, you must have all heard the term PDP, a product description page on an e-commerce platform. A great product description, we needed to educate them first how to do it. Actually, to be honest, we didn't educate them, we did it ourselves, but we ensured that they stay with us when we are doing. We took photographs ourselves, we wrote the spec sheets ourselves. We needed to do the work to teach them. And then once it is on the website, the customer does not really know how to think about buying a sofa set, for example. Okay, I don't know how many of you have searched for, have bought a sofa set recently, but if you have, do you know what kind of foam is there in it? Do you know what is your upholstery? Okay, do you know what kind of wood is used in it? Do you know its dimensions to start with? Okay, on your mobile phone, you know everything. You know the screen size, you know the microprocessor speed, you know how many pixels are there, you know how much memory is there, you know everything, you know all the details. Even TV, for example, most people know what to look for in a TV, LED, LCD, all of that stuff. But when you're talking about home furniture, whether it is sofa sets or beds or, what kind of hardware is used in your wardrobes, okay, nobody knew it, okay. And if you don't know, see, if you're physically present, you have implicit knowledge. You don't have explicit knowledge. You can't say, hey, this is a 68-inch wardrobe with brass hardware, attached at 4 different places, and it has a load-bearing capacity. The door can be 10 kgs height. You don't know this. But when you see this in a store, you understand whether it is robust or it is weak or it is shaking. But we needed to sell stuff online. We needed to bring the customer's knowledge up so that they feel confident enough to say that, I can buy this. So I think customer, and we devoted a lot of time and energy into putting those details onto the website. Remember, we were only an online player at this point in time. And this is before any transactions have happened in India for furniture online. So we needed to put all of that stuff in. Obviously, directionally, these were the decisions that we took. The quality of what we did evolved over a period of time. We weren't A1 quality on day one. We also didn't know all the specs requirement. We also didn't know all the dimensions that need to be captured. So it was a learning journey, but the point that I'm saying was that it's about educating both the supplier, in our case, because it's a platform, it's a marketplace platform, both the supplier and the buyer in terms of building their knowledge so that they can transact, so that one person can provide the right information and the other person can actually build confidence to be able to transact. So education, extremely important, not only to build your brand, which is the point that Subhranshu and CD were driving, that if you educate people, they will trust you more, okay, and they will likely experience your product a lot more than somebody else. Here, you needed education, just not for trust, even to give the empowerment to the customer to be able to buy. So I think education is, again, extremely important as a startup when you're looking to start or scale. That's something that you need to look at. Again, like I said, a lot of the people we started were technologists, people who know how to code and build the platform. and digital marketing guys like me who were like, we can run campaigns and generate interest. We had no expertise in furniture. We didn't know how to take photographs. We needed to build that team entirely. Okay, so so the other lesson kind of I want to touch upon was that you might start a business thinking that, hey, I'm this. I'm a specialist in making a certain product, or I'm a specialist in a certain area, but hardly any business will get built if you stick to your specialization. Okay, from a skill set perspective, especially as founders and entrepreneurs, you need to be able to expand beyond. You need to be, if you know marketing, you know how to, you should either know or understand the technology process. If you know technology, you should either know or understand the furniture manufacturing process, or how to do merchandise, etc. So that's one thing. So we did all this. We had some money, so we started spending on marketing. We started getting some transactions. We had great images, like I said, fantastic photos. People started transacting, but all the customers were having absolutely abysmal experience. Firstly, if we promised something, we'd say that, hey, we'll get it to you in 20 days. We were taking 40 days. Okay, and 35% of all items were broken when they reached the customer's place. Like, most of the sourcing was happening in Rajasthan. Most of the deliveries were happening in Bangalore. It was, 1,300 kilometer journey, and everything was breaking. So the existing logistics infrastructure at that point in time wasn't capable of handling 200 kg, 300 kg, 500 kg packages. Nike ka t-shirt hai, small mobile phone, happy. Blue Dart will ship it for you. FedEx will ship it for you. Gati will ship it for you. No, there was no delivery. There was no black buck. There was no runner. Nobody at that point in time. So we realized that the logistics was totally unpredictable, and the breakages were extremely high. So we realized that it's great to know sourcing. Okay, it's great to know digital marketing. It's great to know technology, but we needed to get very, very deep into logistics. How to store, how to how to ship, etc. So we did two very fundamental big things at that point in time. Again, completely outside our comfort zone. I think the lesson that I kind of want to leave with you guys here is your need to operate outside the comfort zone. So what we did at that point in time was, I keep saying we weren't manufacturers. We aren't. We don't continue to be manufacturers even today, but we set up a factory, and the factory that we set up was for specialized packaging unit. Okay, the factory was only set up, so the furniture was made by somebody else. We only made the boxes, the corners, the thermocol, the foam that is used to package the furniture to be able to ship it. Okay, so we actually worked with Indian Institute of Packaging Management in Delhi, got them down, understood this entire process, and set it up. Okay, it took us like 1.5 years. It didn't happen overnight. So customers were unhappy with us for a long time. But, I guess we had the luxury of, in the early days, to kind of learn along the way. So we put up a packaging unit. The second thing we did was that we realized that in such a large unit, in such a large item, you need installation. Delivery is not enough. You just don't drop the box at the security and walk away. Okay, there is a large wardrobe or a large sofa or even a coffee table for that matter. It needs to go inside the house. It's probably disassembled. It needs to get assembled. So we put up something called a carpenter desk. Even today it exists only in the top 20-30 cities. We don't cover across the country. But we set up our own carpenter desk, which basically says that once a delivery happens within an X period of time, our person would go. When I say our person, it could be outsourced, but it's dedicated to Pepperfry, who would go and actually install the particular item. So we needed to develop a last mile delivery, which is basically the item will move from Jodhpur to Bangalore, but within Bangalore city, we put up 15 trucks to go to each and every neighborhood, and there would be a carpenter along with it to install it. So when you think about building companies, especially when your inspiration is the West, where you build a technology platform, logistics is already taken care of because there's very strong logistics network. Okay, information is taken care of because in the West, information is actually very, very, when I say West, generally businesses in the West, standardization, documentation, workflows, process information, they're all documented. Okay, if you go to somebody and say, hey, what's your customer service process? Okay, they'll have a document which says customer call, okay, pick up, how to say hello, okay, how to inquire about the needs, etc. So the documentation, etc. is very high. Okay, what happens is when there is high standardization and documentation, you can plug services, distribution service, installation service, merchandising service, and you can plug it into your tech platform. In India, you have to build a lot of these yourself. Today, it's much better, the ecosystem, but in general, you would have had to build a lot of it yourself. So I think the other point that I'm kind of trying to drive is, you might think that, you know, you're a technocrat, but you might need to know how to install also. And you need to set up a team. I mean, obviously you might not know how to actually handle the furniture, but you need to know the process. You need to know when it should happen, how it should happen, how long it will take, what it will cost, how to facilitate it, where can I source people who can do it. You need to get into it, okay? And that's how you kind of build that bit. The other point I wanted to kind of quickly touch upon was, especially if you're a digital company, whether you're selling on a marketplace or D2C, the magic of data. Okay, I know that everybody says this, the data is the new oil and data will give you an advantage. And what does data mean? For most people, data fundamentally means that I have the consumer's name and email ID. Okay, which is great, but it's just the starting point. The reason why I say is, let me give you a couple of examples. Today, for example, out of 100 units that are sold on Pepperfry, roughly 50 units are something called home brands or house brands or white labels. Okay, so these particular items are not third-party they are third-party manufactured, but they don't belong to any third-party brand. Okay, 50% comes from brands like Godrej and Hometown and Home Center and Durian and Nilkamal and everybody. But 50% is actually brands that are owned by Pepperfry. Okay, and the reason why we could launch those products was because we could see customer search patterns. Okay, what types of search queries are they using? Which products are they interested in? What kind of price points are they interested in? Where do they spend most time? What kind of items are getting shortlisted? So actually look at consumer data on your own website, consumer data on your purchase. And once you have this information, you can do either of two things. As a marketplace, you can go back to your merchants and say, please make products in this price range or in this design or with this color. Okay, and thereby you can actually use data to enhance your offering. So your own data, your own consumer interactions will help your kind of offering to kind of grow up very, very large. The other way you could, and once that is done to a certain extent, if there are still gaps to be filled, you can launch your own home brands. Okay, your home brands typically will give you better margin. None of you is a marketplace, but I'm saying typically, you know, if you're not dealing with a large brand, you're working directly with a manufacturer, you can get better margin. So don't forget the value that even a small set of transactions, please look at that data. Who's buying it? Why are they buying it? What are the search queries? Where are they browsing? What are they shortlisting? What are they adding to cart? Okay, what is the conversion rate of, you know, there are certain SKUs which have a lot of add to cart but no completion. And there are certain SKUs which, if it adds to cart, then it will complete. So which are the high CVR or conversion rate products? So please look at data, because just optimizing using the data can optimize your funnel. I heard earlier some conversations going around optimizing the funnel. You know, 100 people enter your website, 3 people buy. What happens in between? Okay, where do they drop off? And there are steps. You know, you browse, you shortlist, you add to cart, you make a payment, you buy. Okay, and there are steps. Every pair there is data that is available. So using data can really help you to maximize whatever awareness that you're already generating. Both from a supply side perspective in terms of launching new products, and from a marketing perspective in terms of where can you give the right incentive. For example, Subhranshu and CD talked about cart abandonment. You know, he said how many carts get abandoned. Somebody said 70%. That's right. The number is actually higher. Number is 90%. You know, 95%. 95% of the carts that are made are abandoned. And you can actually get them to come back by either giving them a special incentive, or by offering them other products which are, which you know are bestsellers, because again, you have your data. Okay, so you can say, hey, he's added these products to the cart but not completing. Can I suggest, through a notification or through an email, alternate products that, that are bestsellers? I know they're bestsellers because I have the data. I can send them that, and the chance of completion might go up. So either through a better quality recommendation engine, or through, or through providing just the right incentive at the right time, you can use data to influence both the supply side and the buy side and make the metric, and basically juice your system, make your system work much, much harder for you. And so I think I just mentioned house brands, but that's, like I said, 50% of our business, better margin, and all of that. So that's an important kind of decision that we needed to take and execute it. One of the other things that we ended up doing in 2015, we experimented, 3-4 years after launch, we experimented with a sample store in our own office. Okay, frugality is the name of the game. Suppose you think, hey, furniture, we are selling it online, we are seeing some growth, but guess what? A lot of the people who are buying furniture online, they're buying stools and coffee tables. Nobody is really buying the big sofas, or very few people are buying it, okay, or the big wardrobes. There's an opportunity to, and why are people not buying the heavier, more expensive items? Should something differently be done? So we experimented with an office in our own, with a store in our own office. We ran it for 6 months. We looked at when people walk into that store, okay, and they're guided, again, to go back to the user experience journey, they're proactively guided as to what to expect, what kind of products to expect. Then what happens is that we saw that conversion rates, even for expensive items, 40,000, 50,000 rupee items, was kind of 50%. I mean, 1 out of 2 people were buying even the large items. So it was very, very clear that this was, that we needed to go omnichannel. It was not enough for us to be purely online. We needed to definitely go into omnichannel, and therefore, again, like we went into retail, we started with 2 small stores, then we went to 4, then we went to 10. Today there are 70 company-owned stores, 120, 130 franchisee. But again, it's been a journey right from 2015 to now, or actually kick-started only in 2017, 2018. But again, something that we never expected, because the conventional wisdom, I don't know if you've met or if you've heard about how VCs evaluate digital companies versus old-fashioned companies. Old-fashioned companies, which your regular retailers, your hometowns of the world, or any regular retailer gets a valuation multiple which is 2 times, 3 times, 4 times of revenue. Okay, a digital company, the valuations are 10 times, 20 times, 40 times of revenue. So no technology company wants to say that, we get our sales through stores, because, it reduces your valuation, and no VC will allow it. But we figured that was the right thing for the consumer. Otherwise, we won't be able to, get the supply that we have, we won't be able to do full justice to it. So we took that call, which is against conventional wisdom. The other point I wanted to mention was that you will get all kinds of conventional wisdom, in terms of advice. This is not done like this, don't do this, your valuation will go down, your margin will go down. But I think you need to be completely focused. The focus at that time, like I said, initially was on growth. We wanted to sell bigger value items. We wanted to achieve those sales numbers. We said that we have to open stores, so we will open stores. Valuation is a game, okay? But the right thing is, consumers should love your product and they should have the opportunity to buy it, and the stores will enable it for the larger ticket sizes. So that's exactly what we did, and we kind of are now an omni-channel player also. So I mean, this is kind of like a quick run through of 10 years worth of work, of the different things that we did. The key lessons I wanted to pick was, you have to challenge the conventional thinking. People will say, don't do this, you're a digital company, don't do physical. You'll have to challenge it. You will have to challenge yourself to do new things. People will say, you're not a transportation and logistics company, you're a technology company with digital marketing channels, but you'll have to set up, logistics and operations. You have to become extremely operations heavy. So I think so doing unconventional stuff, doing stuff that you never thought you should do, are some of the key things that helps you to grow. Data, using data smartly to kind of understand your full funnel, understand your supply side, understand your marketing side and the full funnel to kind of optimize it. And then, of course, like I said, education is fantastic for trust building, and it is fantastic for user experience growth. So that's kind of quickly, a little bit about Pepperfry. I can take a second. I mean, I can answer any questions if you have very specific to Pepperfry. After this, what I will do is I will quickly share some broad examples about which are from the industry, and mostly they are American examples. But the point I want to kind of drive is when you're looking to scale up your organization, what are the things that you need to focus on? So I'll shift to that. But at this point in time, if you have any questions relating to what I've spoke for the last half an hour or so, I'm happy to take any questions. Yep, please go ahead.
Hello, myself Sarangashekhar Saikia. I own a company named Sanatan Arts. Actually, we manufacture solid wood furniture. So we are trying to scale up. We actually work only on one product, that is the bed. We are trying to digitalize the bed with digital features, and we manufacture it in our own factory. The point that you said, that omnichannel, that problem I faced actually, because if I sell a bed at 60,000, people don't directly trust the online source for it. You have to show them. You have to make people touch the furniture so that they have to buy. So my plan is to open small stores, only showcasing the bed. Just say a 144 square foot room that is 12 by 12. Will it work? And how to proceed? If you can give me an idea.
This is an idea that you have?
No. We are actually working on it, but I want your input because you have worked in the furniture industry in that terms. So I actually want to know how you feel about it and what is your input to it.
This is it's a little tricky because I'll tell you what, we have 4 or 5 formats of stores out of the 170, 180 that I talked about. I've actually moved out of Pepperfry last year. So when I say we, I meant Pepperfry last year. Right now I'm an independent consultant. So there are different formats. Some formats are 10,000 square foot stores. Okay. Some are 5,000. Some are smaller, 700-800 square feet. I've not seen a much smaller format like the one that you're talking about, which is, let's say, 200 square feet or 150 square feet. But I've seen a lot of mattress stores. Okay, if you look at Kurlon or if you look at any of the mattress guys, they have a lot of really small showrooms. Okay, they do 200 square feet showrooms, etc. And they're able to, and typically what happens is the rent is then lower. Okay, then you need one person to kind of manage it. Okay, and with the store, see, the store as an idea is not a bad idea at all. Okay, you get free publicity. Okay, you get visibility, customer can experience it. So the idea is not about whether or not you should do it. With stores, the entire thing is ROI. How much rent do you pay? How many people do you keep there? And how much conversions are you having? Okay, so as an idea, it's a no-brainer, you should do it. But how you execute to it? Where did you take this store? Okay, is it in the market, or is it in a residential area, or is it in a mall, or is it in a furniture market? Okay, how much are you paying for rent? How many people do you have? Okay, so I think those things become important because then it boils down to ROI. Okay, the concept.
Because when we bring the agriculture as domain into the e-commerce platform like ONDC, and especially B2B, I mean, there is a huge amount of, item, industrial agriculture items that has to be transported out. The major challenge that we are starting to see is this whole logistics part of it. So I just wanted to get your viewpoint on.
So in our logistics setup, we outsourced part of it. So the long haul. So from Jodhpur, we had a warehouse in Jodhpur and we had a warehouse in Bangalore or Bombay or Delhi. The long haul was outsourced. Okay. There's no point in developing that because that ecosystem in India is pretty robust. Okay. So there are proper trucks, there is proper stacking. Okay. If you, so you can contract that out. Okay. We dedicated it. So we did contracts, but we did, so in that truck, there would only be Pepperfry items. Okay. The moment you add multiple people, okay, handling goes up. The moment handling goes up, delays go up, breakage goes up. Okay. But if you dedicate it to yourself, then you can say, once it's packed in Jodhpur, it gets unloaded in Bangalore, nothing else happens in between. So the long haul was entirely outsourced to existing players. Okay. So we did long-term reverse contracts. Okay. But the final mile, okay, the final mile within Bangalore from the warehouse to everybody's house, there was nobody in the market who could do it. Okay. So that was something that's entirely in-house. All the smaller trucks, the Tata Aces, the 407s that run within the city, the drivers, the trucks, the carpenters, the assemblers, they're all ours. But the long distance, we used outsourcing method.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Sure, please.
So my name is Mukut Sharma. I'm running a marketplace called wearmyspecs.com. We are into the vision care industry. I have a few basically inputs I require from your side. The companies that you named are like formed after 2010, like to be named few Flipkart, Lenskart, or in that case, all the big brands that I talked today, Zomato or Swiggy. Still in 2022 or 2023, most of these companies are running in losses. And hardly somebody is making actual profits. And those were days basically where the investment and other stuff were easily available because India was looked at as a promising land. And these companies has lots of opportunity to make trials and errors, burn lots of money, do mistakes and learn from those things. But the current situation, we are in the funding winter, so-called funding winter, and there is hardly any money to be like burned for a long period of time. Running website and creating brands and lots of like spending money on customer acquisition. And for us, the pressure is like really quickly to be more profitable and to show to investors that our current business model doesn't need much of capital investment, but at a very quick turn period of time, we can like have a good ROI. So in this scenario where these brands has got opportunity to create a good name for themselves, establish their name as a brand in the market and go for omnichannel kind of thing, now going for offline franchisee stores. To startup like us in this particular period of time, we don't have that luxury. So what should be the like next way out for us who are basically aiming to working both as a marketplace and also probably after some years in the offline presence also?
You're absolutely right. I think for a very long time, a lot of the companies raised a lot of money and they spent it. They spent it, and I don't want to say, they spent it wastefully or irresponsibly. But if you look back, a lot of money got wasted in learning. Whether it was in brand building, whether it was in customer acquisition cost, whether it is whatever. And they've all reached a certain scale now. Now the problem that they do is, at this scale, can I get profitable? Okay, at 1,500 crores, 2,000 crores, 3,000 crores, what is my unit economics? What are my costs? And how can I make it profitable? They're solving a different kind of problem. For a new entrant in this area, okay, I think fundamentally you need to know what is it that you're bringing that is different to the table. Okay. If you're going to replicate what somebody else will do, and going back into kind of marketing jargon, in marketing there is this concept called differentiation. Okay. And usually the way you look at differentiation is that if you take two products, you make a list. What are they similar at? Okay, and what are they different at? Okay. And if there is 80% similarity and 20% differences, then the big incumbent that was already in the system for a very long time has a lot of money, and they will continue to have money, because what has happened is people have put in hundreds of millions of dollars, they won't let it go down. Okay. If they need 50 million more, they'll give 50 million more. They won't give you 5 million also. Okay. So they will continue to attract money. Okay. So the only reason for you to exist is make that table. What are my points of similarity? 2 or 3 similar points is fine. What are my points of difference? Your points of difference should be more. 6, 7 points should be actually different. You need to be differentiated to start with. What is it that is different that you are playing? And that differentiation needs to be valuable to the customer. Okay. So, for example, when I was just kind of prepping for this for this speech, one of the examples that I came across was a company called Stripe. Okay. It's a payments processing company in the US. Okay. It's a payments processing company in the US, and it started only about 5, 6 years ago. And payments processing companies in the US have been around for 15 years. PayPal has been there. Elon Musk and company started PayPal in 98. Okay, so 15, is it 15? Sorry, it's 25 years ago. So even 25 years ago, they were payment processing companies in the US. But when Stripe came in, they said one of the things that they want to do is they want to make it much more easier, like plug and play, for small merchants to use their payment processing software. So they said, I can't compete with that guy. I can't go and get Amazon to take me as their payment partner, or eBay to take me as a payment partner, or any of the big guys. I will go and find all the really small people, and the reason why they will go with me is the thing that will be very different about me is no integration required, plug and play. Okay, there are a lot of technology software companies here, quite a few. When I did the check at the beginning, they would be thinking about the same thing. One of the things that I'm fairly sure they will tell somebody is, हमारा plug and play है, no integration required. एक दिन का भी coding नहीं है, you just plug it and play it. So you need a point of difference. In your case, for example, as a eyewear marketplace, okay, what is the differentiation? The differentiation is it price? Is it range? Is it service? You need, what are the important drivers of your company, and what are your points of difference? Then once you figure out your points of difference, then execution and user experience become most important. Those particular TG. So let's say Lenskart is addressing, okay, everybody says 1/3 of any Indians or any, let's say Indians, I don't know globally, 1/3 of them need vision correction. Okay, so fundamentally, like there are 140 crore people, 40 crore people need vision correction. But in reality, only 10 crore people are wearing specs. 30 crore people are not even wearing specs. So it's obviously a large market. Okay, but even within this 10 crore that are wearing specs, maybe Lenskart is not fulfilling everything that they require, either in terms of price or in terms of range or whatever it is. So you need to plug that. Either you choose to attack the 30 crores who need vision correction but are not wearing it, or the 10 crore that are getting served today but have pain points. Then you pick those pain points and they become your strengths. Okay, so you'll have to differentiate. That's my only point. And in this day and age, because you don't have the luxury of throwing money and learning, you will have to do it frugally. What is called product market fit. Okay, you must have heard it in most startup jargon. They say there is something called a product market fit. I think you need to get your product market fit, which basically fundamentally means that there are enough people, and enough is something that you need to define based on your financial requirements. There are enough people who are willing to pay for your product, use and pay for your product. And if you get to that stage, your product market fit can be arrived at with 100 customers or with 1,000 customers or 2,000 customers. But once you have the product market fit, then you can scale it. But for the product market fit, you need to figure out what's your differentiator and whether customers are willing to pay for it. Any other question linked to some of this? Cool. So let me kind of then jump into what I tried to do. Actually, when I came in, I didn't think I will share the kind of Pepperfry journey with you, but I ended up sharing it because the sense that I got was that it might help to kind of set the baseline as to, what my journey has been, what are the things that we've been looking at. Yeah. So let me kind of now jump to okay. All right. So some of these slides I'll go through a little faster. Some of these slides I'll take some extra time because I know the focus is a little bit on scaling up, but then I got a sense that the kind of scale up that I've covered here is stuff that maybe many of you will encounter down the road. It's not an immediate problem for you. Okay. So maybe then I'll spend some time on the softer aspects of, entrepreneurship in terms of examples, etc. So, obviously, how does this? So the first point is where I say start with the consumer or market first. So I think that's the like golden rule. I took the earlier example of the Indian consumer. When I was talking about Pepperfry, has become aware, has become globally aware, but the furniture that's available in their local marketplaces looks like the same furniture that their father bought. Okay, so the consumer tastes have evolved, okay, but the supply side has not kept pace, the regular supply side, okay, but the supply opportunity was hidden in Rajasthan, which is a different story. But the point here is that the consumer taste has evolved, supply side has not evolved, so there's an opportunity that has come up. So you start with either something that the consumer desperately needs, okay, or the market needs. For example, like something like Uber, okay. Something like Uber, when it started around 2010, 2011 in San Francisco with a one city start, okay. Very clearly there was a need. Taxi services were extremely inefficient, and there were so many people who had cars which were not getting used, and there were so many unemployed people who knew how to drive but their labor was not getting used. Okay, so there's a huge opportunity to use the cars and the labor that is available to kind of fulfill the need that the customers have because the existing cab service was not working. So there was a crying need in the market in terms of suboptimal cab services. There's a big unlock possible in terms of the shared economy. The car is used only once in the morning and evening, rest of the day it is free. So, you could actually monetize it. Okay. So I think that's that. So for each of you, if you're the 110th T in town, okay, or the 51st software service provider in town, okay, you need to understand the point that I was making about differentiation. You need to know why you exist. Is there a particular need that is not getting fulfilled that you want to that you want to take care of? Okay. The second point is, in the beginning, you need to do that. You need to do things that don't scale. Okay, but build the proof. I want to take an example from Airbnb in this. So what happened when Airbnb started? Again, the concept, if you believe in it, it's a great concept. If you don't believe in it, it is not. Airbnb, obviously everybody knows, is you rent your homes out. If you have an additional room or if you have an additional 2 rooms, you rent it out for strangers to come and stay with you. Eventually, it has now become like if you have a second house, you will put a caretaker there and put that on Airbnb. And now it has become corporatized. People buy, companies are buying houses and then putting up it on Airbnb, etc. Globally, different models are running. But initially, when it started as a concept where if you have an additional room in your house and you're, let's say, in New York City, for example, and so many people come to New York City for business or for pleasure, give them a room. Instead of paying $300 in the hotel, they'll pay $150 to you and you are able to make money. You just need to keep the room clean, etc. So Airbnb started on that concept, but it wasn't taking off at all. Okay, it wasn't taking off at all. No, people were not buying it. Y Combinator had funded them, but it was not taking off. So that's when somebody stumbled upon the fact that out of the 50 houses or 100 houses that they had listed, and again it started in a single city, New York, of the 50 or 100 houses that they had listed out there, only 5 or 6 had photographs. Those homes that had photographs, they were getting business. They were hardly empty. Every night somebody or the other would book it. Whereas the other 95 houses, some of them were much better than these 4 or 5 houses, nobody was booking. Okay. So they realized that photos make the entire difference. People want to see where they're going to sleep in the night, then only they will book it. So they wrote to all the hosts, all the 100 hosts, saying, please put up photos. None of the hosts put up. Okay, firstly, they didn't know how to take the room photos, what to do. They didn't believe in the concept enough. This was all before the proof was built, before the concept was built. So the entire Airbnb team, whether it was 10 people or 15 people or whatever at that point in time, moved from Silicon Valley to New York for the next 1 month and stayed in each and every house, okay, and took photos and put it up, okay. So it's normally, you want to find an agency to do that. Ideally, the host should do it. Okay, that's the scalable method. One of the things that you keep hearing in all, and because this is a talk about scalability, the scalable method is that the hosts themselves would do the photos. Second thing would be, okay, if they're not able to do it, can you use an agency to do it? But in the early stage, because there were no best practices, there were no established processes, the founders and the immediate next 1 or 2 people who were with them, these 4 or 5 people, 5 people, went and over a month slept in every room and created that. So in the initial stage of your startup, please remember you have to do things scale up yourself. Another example I want to take is everybody thinks that Google was an amazing success. Google was not the first search engine in town. Okay. Google was actually the 5th or 6th search engine in town. There was Lycos, there was Alta Vista, there was InfoSeek. All of these people existed. I remember using them. And but Google came along. They had a much better algorithm and their results were much better. But how will people know it? Because it was a project in the computer science department in the dorm in Stanford University. Okay. How will people get to know it? Okay. So only the university researchers, computer science guys knew it. The rest of the world did not know that this was a much better search engine than the 3 or 4 that I took the name of. So at that point in time, their head of sales, okay, and who was coming in from like a $500,000 salary kind of a person, he was hired because they had raised money on the back of technology. Zero business, great technology, raised money, okay. And it keeps happening in Silicon Valley. So they hired a top-notch sales guy who normally runs 1,000-member sales teams. But here, the concept was so new, what would the sales team sell? So this person used to park, his name was Omid Kordestani, okay. He used to park in the offices of AOL and Yahoo, okay, from morning to evening, okay, to win the deal. The deal was to put the search box on the Yahoo homepage or the AOL homepage. AOL was the internet service provider, it used to be called DSL provider in those days, or the broadband service provider, and Yahoo was the most popular homepage, that most people had when they opened up internet, okay. They wanted to get the search bar, Google branded search bar on those 2 places, and Omid himself spent number of days without getting meeting, morning 9 to evening 6, in the waiting room at Yahoo, and they write about it in their early book, to crack a deal. It took them like a month to crack those 2 deals. The head of sales himself was sitting and doing, his salary was $500,000, but he was sitting there to get it done. My example, again, in order to scale up, you need to go through this. You need to take the photos yourself. You need to spend the time to win the first deal. So winning your first X customers, you win Yahoo and AOL, okay, that's it. Those 2 deals are done. Within 6 months, you are 100x as large in terms of usage. And 6 months later, you're 1000x as large. But you needed to crack only 2 deals. So I think that's the big thing. And then in order to adapt, listening to users. Again, let me take an example. There is this company called Slack. A lot of you guys might have heard about it or used it. Okay. When it started as a team communication tool. Simply a tool in which team people can communicate with each other. But there were tens of such communication tools already in the industry, and usage was, not so great. So this is when the founders, they started getting feedback saying that what they require is not necessarily a communication tool, but what is called a collaboration workflow management tool right now. How to exchange files, how to exchange images, how to, share pieces of code, and so on and so forth. So they built those features into Slack, okay? And Slack just took off. A lot of the other communication tools, Yammer and everything else remained, at the 100 million, 200, 300 million dollar mark, whereas Slack eventually was bought by Salesforce for $27 billion. Okay, so obviously, listening to your consumer to change your product. I'm so sorry, the Apple Watch is listening to my conversation and reacting too much. So the thing is, being able to listen to the users to adapt your product is another extremely important thing that is required. The other thing, I don't know how many of you have co-founders, but I think in general, the success rate for single founder companies is less than 10% of the successful companies. Successful companies are itself 10%. So 10% of 10% is 1%. If you're a single founder company, the thing is much, much lower. You should have a co-founder who's kind of your completely complementary skills. You must have heard the famous story about Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. One was the product visionary and one was a technical whiz kid. Okay, so somebody who, and both their skills come together to kind of create a great co-founder. The other example I want to take is about don't be afraid to fail. You will not get results, for the first X months, X years. Like I said, when we started Pepperfry, or for that matter, when Urban Ladder started, the total number of transactions online for furniture was 0. Okay. And we still started the business. The business started as an online furniture company, not just us, but the other 2-3 people who followed, or who started roughly at the same time in early 2012. Okay. So you need to do, like Tesla, Elon Musk got a big payout from his PayPal kind of payout, $100 million or so at that point in time. He put $99.99 million, like almost 99.99% of his money, into Tesla in 2008. The first car that they sold was in 2012. For 4 years, okay, they did not have anything. There was no proof of concept. There were no electric cars. They were hybrid cars. There were no electric cars. There was no electric charging network. Batteries were so inefficient at that point in time that, whether you can actually build a battery that will run a car for 300 kilometers or 300 miles or 4 hours or whatever it is was, not proven. So what do? You create $100 million of personal wealth. You put all that money. You convince VCs to put another $500 million, and you use these $600 million to build a company for 4 years. Today, when you look back at electric car, there is a charging network. That battery can hold that much charge. But at that point in time, nobody knew it. It was a shot in the dark. But they went ahead and did it, spent their own money, spent the money, and they failed. Actually, the first car that they bought out after 4 years was a massive failure. And they were about to be shut down. They got a government of US grant because they were working on, a battery, on a battery powered thing, the solar powered aspect of Tesla. They got a government of US grant, which saved them. And their next car, which was Model S, the 5th year, which really took off. So in retrospect, it seems like it's, something that will happen. But I think you'll need to, and I'm using big examples just to make that impact. But, just to keep at the back of your mind, if you are convinced that, EV is the next thing in the world, or whatever it is that you are pushing, the market might not be ready. Just like I said, the market was not ready, but you have to pursue it whatever it takes. Let me give you another example. I think one of the things that I've personally gone through with Pepperfry over a 10-year time frame is multiple near-death experiences. When I say near-death, not for me, but for the company. Okay, when you're running out of funding, we're unable to pay, the next month's salary, or you're trying everything for 6 months, but there is zero growth. Okay, you're stuck at the same sales figure, whatever it may be, 1 lakh, 5 lakh, 10 lakh, and you're not able to crack it, it feels like you don't have the solution to it, you don't know what to do next. I think all of these feelings, all of these events will happen in every startup's life. Unless you are completely passionate about what you're doing it, you'll be one of the 9 out of 10 people who will give up after the 10th obstacle. Okay, you should not give up after the 100th obstacle also. That's when you will survive. And passion is extremely important. The grit and passion for this is extremely important. One of the examples that I want to just take for this is, you must have heard about Khan Academy. Okay, so in Khan Academy, Sal Khan, who started it, was a MIT grad and a hedge fund manager making a lot of money. But then he realized this opportunity to actually teach children in a not-for-profit fashion, using digital as a medium. He left his job in 2006. He got his first grant much later. But for about 3-4 years, he got shut down multiple times. He had to spend his entire savings to kind of make it happen. But eventually, once enough people liked his product, he started getting grants. He's still, I think, a not-for-profit, so he keeps getting grants even today to kind of run and scale. Yeah. So, again, some of these points will be new, some of them might be repetition, so I'll try and skip the repetition ones a little quickly. Like I said, either you start with a vision, a real consumer problem, or you start with a very strong vision that you think will eventually address a consumer need. Let me take an example. How many of you have heard of Peloton? Have people heard of Peloton? Okay. So Peloton is a company that today is valued, today its value is a couple of $100 million. At its peak was valued at $15 billion. It is fundamentally a stationary cycle that you keep in your home that is digitally enabled. Okay. So basically what happens is that because of the digital enablement, somebody can stream, there is a TV screen on the cycle. Somebody can stream workouts, live exercise sessions, multiple people can form a network and, do cycling together, etc. So Peloton actually started with a single vision that the founder had. The founder said that especially metro cities in the US, they require an ability to do fitness regime on a one-on-one basis in their own homes without losing the idea of community. So what happens is you go to a gym, okay, you have a community, people who train with you, there are the trainers, there are other people who are taking a class with you. Usually fitness is a community feeling, okay, but it has the entire friction of going out, and working with, going to a gym, taking a membership. But what Peloton does is, in your own bedroom, you can jump onto a cycle. At a touch of a button, you are a part of a digital ecosystem. Everybody's progress can be monitored. If you want to, you can share your progress. You can talk to each other using the screen. You can, chat with people, with your trainer, with other people in your group, in your cohort. Basically, what it did was it combined the personal, the personal experience of an exercise in your own house with a community exercise of the gym. So when it connected those two things, this company really took off. At its peak, like I said, it was valued at almost 15 billion a couple of years ago. Obviously, post-COVID, everything in the US has come down, so it's valued at $300 million right now. So vision is extremely important. Raising money. There are examples galore of, how raising money is probably the toughest thing that an investor will do. How many of you have heard of Canva? Good. Yeah. So Canva was recently bought by Adobe, I think, if I'm not mistaken, for some $20 billion. Canva was started by a lady called Melanie Perkins when she was still in her college. Over a 3-year time frame, she had 100 rejections. When she did fundraising calls along with her co-founder and boyfriend at that time. She had 100 rejections. The first company that invested in her was 3 years later, and the 101st venture capitalist that she met. So I think, again, the point that I'm trying to drive is raising money is tough. You will have to go through a lot of rounds of disappointment before you can finally do it. But if she had given up what she was doing at that point in time, she wouldn't have had a $22 billion outcome that she had last year when Adobe bought Canva. Execution, I was talking about Stripe. That was my example for execution. What Stripe did was they realized that they will focus on execution specifically on features for smaller merchants and user experience for smaller merchants. Okay, you can be the 10th party in any particular market, but if your execution and your focus on what, like smaller merchants, okay, their focus on smaller merchants and wider number of features for smaller merchants. If you are very clear about your points of difference and you focus in on that and then you execute to that, then it can still help you to kind of grow big. And all of these points that I'm saying are actually personal traits that the founder needs to have. Okay, it's not generally for the startup. I'm saying that the belief in the vision of what is the future that you want to paint, the willingness to keep evangelizing your product till you are able to raise money, the willingness to drive execution to the specific points of differentiation that you are carving out, putting an operating rhythm. How the company performs is entirely your baby. Okay, you need to set the operating rhythm. When will the office open? When will the office shut? Will meetings be done promptly? Will meetings not be done promptly? Earlier, Subhrangshu was asking how many people reply to emails in half an hour. Or, a lot of people reply to WhatsApp in half an hour, but email is possibly, end of day. Okay. So these are very simple, basic examples of operating rhythm. Operating rhythm is about responsiveness. Operating rhythm is about planning. Operating rhythm is about, having monthly, weekly, quarterly goals for everything. So setting that operating rhythm is entirely, again, a founder task. Ensuring momentum. I think the one single thing that differentiates a successful startup from somebody who's struggling a lot, people might have everything else, but if they're not able to generate momentum in an early stage startup, then it kind of, fizzes out. Okay, momentum is extremely important, and momentum comes from willing to act really fast. So very, very strong bias for action is what is required. If you look, again, there was an example of, during Demon, the way Paytm moved. Okay, I don't know whether you guys remember, but when demonetization, between Demon and post-Demon, I think Paytm grew 100x. Okay, their stickers started appearing everywhere within a week, or I think that ad came out next day. Okay, but the stickers started appearing on even vegetable thelas, etc. within under a week. I know it's probably 2-3 days or something. So market shifts. This is a classic example of a market shift or a technology shift that happened. It happened through regulation, which was Demon, but the tech shift was shifting to digital payments. And there were a bunch of companies at that point in time. PhonePe was probably not as big, and GPay was probably not launched yet, but there was MobiQuick, and there was enough payment, enough payment companies and wallets out there. But Paytm was the guys who got the thing because they focused on momentum and pace. I think that's and again driven entirely by the founders founders imperatives. The other example I want to take is hustle might not be the best word. You could call it hustle or pivot. But the example I want to take is Zomato. Okay, when Zomato first started, it started as Foodie Bay, which was basically a listing of restaurants and restaurant menus. Okay, and they converted to Zomato. They started expanding globally. And they reached some 30 odd countries. Again, period of easy money. You could expand globally. The task was very simple. It was like a classified site. You just needed to collect information, structure it, keep it updated, publish it. Have a nice mobile interface for it so that users would use it. And then you'd make money through subscription fees that the restaurant would pay, or maybe some advertising fee that you could charge other people. So it was a nice business model, but it was not scaling. Even going to 30 cities, revenue was not scaling. Okay. That's when Dipinder decided that he needs to take on Swiggy headfront. Swiggy had started to scale. Swiggy started as a delivery organization. Zomato started as a listing organization, restaurant listing versus food delivery. They changed. The moment they decided, I don't know how long it took them to launch. Is it 1 month, 3 months, 6 months? But they changed. They changed it. They went down that route. Eventually, they joined. They realized that it's not enough to be only in food delivery, but they wanted to get into the dine-in sector also. People were still spending money going to restaurants, and how can they get their share from that revenue? They were not happy saying ki from listing, they moved to food delivery. From food delivery, they added another feature called Zomato Gold in those days, which was fundamentally about dine-in. Swiggy followed. Swiggy recently bought Dine Out, I think, for the same reason. So all of these people, they're not satisfied with one revenue stream or one revenue model, subscription, advertising. Then they go into food delivery where you get a transaction revenue. Then you get into in-room dining where you get advertising and transaction revenue. So I think the founder's willingness to keep looking at what we call market adjacencies and keep going after it is an extremely important feature. So the final point is culture. The culture of the organization needs to be set by the founder. So I'll give an example. One of the firms that I worked with, the culture was, one of the values that we had was intensity. Intensity was defined as, I used to define it for myself as every single day, play like it is the last 2 overs of a T20 match. Okay, the stakes are extremely high. Okay, you can hit 17, 18 runs each over, okay, and add 35 those things. Or you can bowl a very, very tight and stop something. Basically, anybody who's playing the last 2 overs of a T20 match is fully clued in. Okay, that is the time to act. There is no other time. Okay, and you need to bring that energy and that intensity every single day, morning to evening. And actually, that was completely embodied by the founder. Okay, the founder did this. And eventually we reached a stage where, I'll give you just 2 small examples. Let's say you have a review meeting, and in the review meeting you say that first day you start the review meeting, you start it at 10 o'clock, and you say, let's shut it at 8. Okay? But for some reason, it spreads. From 8, it goes to 10. So 10 to 10, you've been in the review meeting. Next day morning, you said, hey, we lost some time yesterday. So let's do one thing. Instead of starting at 10, let's start at 9. Let's start 1 hour earlier. Okay? You'll be surprised next day, okay, the full quorum, and this was a quorum of 50 people, was in the meeting room at 8. Okay, not because they mistook the time, but because that's how the company had begun to operate. If the goal is saying, last night you went home at 10, come back at 9 tomorrow, at 8 o'clock the meeting started because at 7:45 all the 50 people were in the room. Okay, and it was purely a reflection of the founder's personality, this company that I know. And I think the founder, just imagine what happens. And this is in a city like Bombay, which is anyway very professional. Anyway, a lot of people maintain time. Okay. In general, it's supposed to be a very business-like city with strong work ethic. In that kind of a place, you actually have this kind of behavior where, a meeting that has been brought forward, people are available. So, and I could tell that was happening purely because of the founder's personality. And you need that kind of a culture. I'm not saying that that's the only type. There are many types of cultural aspects, but that's just an example where the founder can really drive culture for the sake of performance. So some of these I think I've already covered. Focus on real problems that are coming through a market shift, from a regulatory shift, from a real consumer need. Let me take an example from the technology world. All of you have heard of Dropbox. Okay, some of you have heard of Dropbox. Dropbox, it started, I think, around 2008-9. Okay, by 2010, or maybe started around 2010. By 2011, it was doing $300 million of revenue. Okay, the reason was because the reason was because file storage had become, and this was before iCloud and all of that stuff. I mean, Dropbox has subsequently been hit because of Amazon and because of Apple and because of Microsoft, because they came up with cloud. But Dropbox was the pioneer, and file storage for office goers and for individuals was such an important thing, was such a crying problem, that they just needed to launch the feature. Okay, and they launched it for free. Okay, they only monetized if your file storage exceeded 10 GB or 20 GB or something, and which only 10% of the people paid for. And that revenue skyrocketed to $250-300 million in 24 months. Talk about a real need. Okay, they just put the technology in the market. Consumer adoption is so crazy. Not a single dollar in marketing. One person knows, he tells 20 people. Okay, all 20 will use it, and then they tell 400 people. So I think that's a classic example. All of us won't be so lucky to get such a real problem to tackle with, but just when you think about it like that. Don't afraid to do the new thing. We talked about Tesla already. Okay, for 4 years there was no guarantee, no network, no nothing. Don't get too clever with your solutions. How many people of you have heard about Google Glass? You've heard about Google Glass. There's a fancy looking device, you put it on your face, and it can record things, it can see and it can record. Okay, and you control it by using gestures, etc. Okay, so obviously this was a piece of technology that was, I think, too clever for the consumer. Okay, it was very, very tough for people to control, for an average person to control. It worked on gesture, to turn on, turn off, zoom in, expand, record, all of that. It worked on gestures, and it was just too complex, it's too clever, plus it was too intrusive. Somebody would walk in wearing a Google Glass, you don't know whether he's recording that event or no. With a phone, at least you know the person has to hold it or at least keep it like this or something. But with Google Glass, so it never took off despite all of Google's issues. The other point I wanted to make was that in your early stage, okay, I think for a startup, it's extremely important to be focused on your consumer and problem that you're solving, and less on who's my competition. Okay, while I did talk about what's your point of difference from the competition, it's important to know, okay, what is your point of difference from the competition, but don't be obsessed about what they're doing on a daily basis. On a daily basis, you need to be focused on what is different about you. Okay, the example I want to take here, and the different can be very, very esoteric. The example I want to take here is, how many of you heard of Patagonia? Okay, which is a winter wear or outdoor wear kind of a company, makes puffer jackets and hoodies and all of that for cold temperatures and for hills and so on and so forth. Patagonia is not the first winter wear company in the world. There are so many companies, including, if you noticed Suman's presentation, there was a company called REI which started the opt-out. Opt-out. So REI is an outdoors company. They've been around for 50 years. They're a fairly large organization. So there are many companies that do this. But Patagonia started with the single, purpose of environmentalism. So if somebody asked, how is a Patagonia vest different from an REI vest or a Columbia vest or a whatever others, puffer vest, no difference, no point of difference. The only point of difference is that Patagonia, out of its corporate earning, final year-end corporate earning, a very, very large proportion of it goes for environmental causes. That's it. So Patagonia actually charges double for the same kind of item compared to, let's say, Columbia. Okay, and people are willing to pay that double because the only point of difference is they have put it on their corporate mission, and their founder is credible enough for people to believe it, that 90% of the end of the year corporate earnings will go for environmental protection objectives. That's the only point of difference. So I think they didn't worry about what is Columbia doing, what is REI doing. Okay, they obviously have to make good quality product. That the point of parity, point of difference, point of similarity, point of parity needs to be there. But the key difference is, the fact that the consumers are focused on environment, and those are the consumers that I will serve. Okay, so something like that. So the other thing is there will be failure. I think there will be tons of failure. I took the Zomato example earlier. If you think about Netflix, Netflix started as a DVD kiosk firm. Okay, so they used to have these big red boxes outside supermarkets in the US where you could put some money in the slot or a membership card or something, and you take a DVD and you see it and you go back and return it. Okay, they started as a kiosk. They moved into a DVD mail-in company. Okay, so what happens is you ask them to send some item. They send the DVDs to you. You then watch it and then you ship it back to them. Okay, but all of them were hugely money making. Netflix almost died with both these business models. It had almost died. But Reed Hastings, the founder, was very, very clear that he needs to bring entertainment into people's houses beyond linear TV, okay, which was basically on-demand entertainment he needed to bring. He figured out streaming, okay, and rest is history. Netflix is one of the most successful things. So your first business model, your second business model, your third business model, all of them may fail. They might not generate revenue. They might lead you to spending all the money, but your fourth one will succeed. So I think treating failure as a stepping stone is extremely important. The couple of other things that I think you need to watch out for in your journey towards building is, number one, I think the team that you pick, I talked earlier about Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. One was a technical genius, one is a product visionary. But I think that's a great example. But in real life, your co-founders or people you deal with, they need to have skills, but I think the more important thing is you need to be loyal to each other. You need to be willing to face all hardships together, because those hardships will happen. Usually that's when people break away, and people who break away, like I said, they don't last. But I think so. Therefore, reliability on each other is more important than being a specialist. Somebody is a brand specialist. Somebody is a digital marketing specialist. That's not as important as, willing to partner through thick and thin. And then one of the things that I think learnt it in many ways is for example, is patience with results and impatience with actions. So there was a time when Pepperfry and Urban Ladder, both of us decided to open stores. Okay, and we weren't very sure. Like I said, we opened a sample store in our office. It showed good feedback results, but we weren't really sure that, whether there's a done deal. Like I said, there was a lot of opposition. So we launched a couple of more stores in Bangalore. So when we launched them in Bangalore, we were Bombay based. Urban Ladder also launched 2 stores in Bangalore. Okay, and then, but still the results were not out. To get a good sense of a retail footprint, you need at least 6 months to happen. Okay, lots of learning is there. At the end of 12 months, you'll know whether this format is working. Like I said, the idea itself is not bad, but the ROI has to work. Okay, and I think what we did was that the moment we figured out that the ROI will work, and like I said, it took us 2 years. I said we really started building it in 2017, 2018. We went from 1 store in 2015 to slowly to 10 stores. In 2018, we went slowly because we were validating the model. But once we validated the model in 2018, from 2018 to pre-pandemic, we went to 80 stores, 10 to 80. And then after pandemic ended, we went from 80 to 180. So your action in terms of opening stores should be big, but you need to be patient to get the results right. to know that you're taking the right step in terms of opening. Like I said, it's an equation of how much rent you pay, what are your costs, and what is your ROI. So getting that right is important. In Flipkart, when they started shipping items, they realized that user experience was suffering. Okay, so they built out their own company called eCart. Okay, which actually, and they didn't build it just to protect margin. They built it primarily to help, user experience. Eventually, they protected margin. Eventually, they converted into a revenue-generating unit by giving eCart services to other e-commerce players. So I think focusing on user experience is extremely important. Collecting feedback when you're building. So when you're building your product, all of these things that I'm talking about are when you're in the build phase of your product, not really the scale-up phase, but the big phase. Collecting feedback is extremely important. Again, kind of going back to the Canva example. When Canva first started, it was a few templates with a few design elements. Okay, but eventually they kind of morphed the product into being able to customize the template. So originally there were a few published templates. Eventually you could get into customization. And finally, at this point in time, they needed to again integrate with tens of third-party tools, whether it is Adobe or anybody else that, or your social media net platforms, etc. So collecting feedback and changing what you stand for from a fixed number of templates, fixed number of design elements, to customization capabilities, to integration capabilities. I think that's an evolution that happens, and that evolution usually comes through feedback. You can't imagine everything on day one. You will get it only when you take strong feedback from users. Okay. What is MVP? Does anybody know? I mean, I'm afraid that I'm boring a lot of you guys. Super. So a good example of an MVP is, have you heard of Zappos, the shoe company? Okay. So Zappos was bought by Amazon in the late 2007, 8, 9, around that time frame. At the time when they were bought, they were America's largest shoe retailer, online shoe retailer. And Amazon tried to compete with them, but could not, and eventually ended up paying, I think, $3 billion for a shoe retailer way back in the mid-2000s. Okay. So Zappos, when they first started, again, no proof of concept. So that people will buy shoes online, because shoe was all about fit. Is it fitting me? Okay, it's not just about size. Okay, so how will it work, etc. So because they wanted to explore this, for the first year and a half almost, Zappos was simply a website where you could order shoes. They didn't hold any inventory. They did not have any deals with manufacturers. Okay, so they just put a website up. If they get an order on the website, they would go to a local store, buy the shoe, and ship it to the customer. Okay, so they just wanted to assure themselves that, the very fact that that people will buy shoes online, okay, without worrying about sizes, etc. So their MVP was a simple ordering website. Okay, nothing, no backend to support it. Backend used to happen through other stores. They would just buy from other stores. But once they figured this out over X number of months, then they got into deals with the manufacturers. They built the whole thing out. They built warehouses. They started holding inventory, but they didn't spend a single rupee on all of those things till they got the concept right, that if I list X number of shoes and if I get Y number of visitors, I will do a certain amount of orders. Once they got that equation right is when they invested in the rest of it, and for that equation they only had a simple transacting website. Okay. Another important thing, I talked about how data was extremely important in the journey for Pepperfry in terms of launching house brands, in terms of improving supply with the merchants, etc. Another classic example where data is almost everything, okay, is a very, very large part, is any content company, okay, like Spotify or Netflix or any of these guys. If you realize, Spotify is now, for the last 2-3 years, producing their fresh content. But till 2-3 years ago, for the first 15 years of their life, basically the songs belong to somebody else. Okay. some other artist, some other studio. They were just giving consumers a way to stream that data. Okay, but why has it become so addictive? Why do people listen to Spotify, pay the subscription, or for that matter, Ghana or whatever else that people listen to? I'm using Spotify because it's a global success. Okay, and because it's addictive. I mean, the minutes on Spotify per year have been constantly going up. It started with 15, 20 minutes. Now it is in on hours. Okay, so people just put in their. It's not as if that there was no streaming service before. There was a lot of streaming services. Even in India, you had a ton of streaming services. JioSaavn came, Gaana came, this came, that came, but Spotify is ruling. The reason it's ruling is because their recommendation engine. Okay, what will you like to listen? Okay, the playlist that they create for you, customized playlists that they create for you. All of these make it far more engaging. Okay, you will listen to them a lot more, and they're able to do that because they're using data much more smartly. What are you listening to? When are you playing it? What do you listen to in the morning? What do you listen to in the evening? Okay, when you're in the gym, what do you listen to? What genres? Which artists? So I think the beauty about startups of this day and age, especially using digital ecosystems or digital platforms, is that the power in the data to actually help you to build your product and fine-tune it to make it even better. I think that's like extremely important. The other thing when you're building is there is no single answer. There is no easy one fit answer. Okay. How many of you know that in 2015, Myntra shut its website down and moved to mobile only? This was a short example. They did it for a few months before they relaunched their website, but they shut it down. Okay. So I'm just using it as an example to say that they wanted to bet on mobile. They said shopping will move to the mobile phone. It will move to...
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
I think I'll keep it in my pocket or something. So, or I'll have to ask Tim Cook not to listen to me. So, so they bet on the mobile. They went and launched mobile-only experience. They invested in the app, but they realized that, there were a few customers who preferred the website experience, and then they kind of relaunched the website. But even today, 80% of their business comes from the mobile platform. So the point I wanted to make was that this is an iteration, okay? And because they were such an early adapter of, I believe that they lead, and where they won over Jabong, and eventually they bought Jabong over for, for a pittance, to be honest. Okay, was because they took that bet. They took that bet to iterate shift into mobile. They got that leadership. They relaunched the website, in the next iteration to capture all the business, but that thing actually helped them to kind of move forward. And then I'm using the word innovation, but fundamentally what I wanted to say was, I'd taken the Zomato example earlier, from listing to food delivery to in-room dining. Similarly, if you look at Amazon, for example, they started off as books and then all e-commerce, and then they became a marketplace. They were originally D2C. If you know that Amazon till 2007, for the first 13 years of their life, was not a D2C brand, but they weren't a marketplace. Nobody else sold on Amazon except themselves. They launched a marketplace in 2007, where other merchants could come and sell. So they made that shift from that to that, and because they scaled so much, they figured out AWS as a business because they needed the cloud infrastructure to run their e-commerce business. So AWS became a business. Then, of course, they launched Kindle because they had led with books. They launched Prime to build that loyalty, to build that stickiness factor. And in order to keep Prime robust, they launched the OTT platform on Prime. But Prime initially was just a shopping loyalty program. The OTT part of it came to it later. So I think the reason why I'm saying this is that as a founder, as a builder, okay, all of these are opportunities. Okay, these are opportunities that you yourself can see as you're building. And therefore, you need to be able to figure out that what's my next play. Okay. I think given that, is there a time constraint? Okay. So I think this is my last 15 minutes or so, 15-20 minutes. So I will be skipping a few of the slides that I have, but I want to focus on the main things. The idea was really about scaling up, okay, and I wanted to kind of share some of the examples that I have seen, that I have seen as I scaled up Pepperfry from, like I said, 30 crores to 1,000 crores. So it's extremely important. So we operated in a world, like somebody pointed out earlier, we operated in a world where money was not a problem. We raised a lot of money, we could spend it. And when you raise a lot of money and you could spend it how you want, customer acquisition would happen. Okay. If you acquired 1,000 customers today, you could acquire 2,000 by spending 2x the money. You could get 5,000 customers by spending 5x the money. So I realized very early that eventually profitability of any organization, of any e-commerce play, or of any product play, or any business for that matter, will come through, unless you're doing some projects or something, but even there, will come through retention. Okay, and retention is actually the most important thing in growth, because you can keep spending money to get, and very, very few businesses make money on the first transaction. Okay, or you spend so much money that your first transaction is loss making. You definitely need to have the second, third, fourth transactions so that the overall customer relationship, or what is called customer lifetime value, CLV, is positive. And for that, retention is extremely important. And for me, the way I think about it is, retention has 4 or 5 buckets. Okay, but I think the number one bucket is engagement. Okay, the customer should feel excited about coming back to your website. So Pepperfry is a furniture website. Okay, as a furniture website, people are not buying furniture every day, every month. People buy cosmetics frequently, people buy fashion frequently, people buy grocery frequently, obviously very, very frequently, but furniture is not that segment. So fundamentally, but we're lucky to have some other sector like kitchen, furnishings, decor, lamps and lighting, all of those items together, which are slightly more frequent than furniture. So we had all of those other categories in place. And the beauty about a lot of these other categories is that they're exciting fundamentally. Great decor, great paintings, great carpets, good cushion designs. People are willing to change. Okay, they don't need to wait for 7 years to change their sofa, but they can change their sofa cushions. If they find a really great design, they can change it after 6 months or after 1 year, for that matter, or something else they can change, more frequently. So for us, the biggest method of keeping customers coming back to our website was through using the other categories. So furniture was the main category, maximum revenue would happen through it, but transactions would get driven through engagement. We would launch new merchants with new supply, continuously on these other categories. Let me take an global example, which is actually much smarter on engagement. Okay, this is an example called Glossier. How many have heard of Glossier? So Glossier is a makeup and cosmetics firm. Okay, it is not like Nykaa. Okay, because Nykaa is a marketplace. It is more like, let us say, I'm not so familiar with the cosmetics market, but have you heard of Plum Goodness or Sugar or Wow or Okay, so these are good examples, Sugar, etc. So it's more like that. Glossier is more like that, but they built their entire business on the back of community. Okay, so community fundamentally built on Instagram and YouTube, fundamentally built on video as a method of engagement, and fundamentally built on UGC, user-generated content. So consumers would actually share their videos of usage, of finished product, etc. And UGC took off, user-generated content took off, and then influencers, obviously. Nykaa got built on influencers. So people come there to actually watch the videos, and they then shop. So you need a very, very strong engagement hook. That's the number one thing in retention. The number two thing is personalization. Wherever possible, I think personalizing the consumer journey earlier when Shubhranshu and CD talked about the consumer journey, they talked about a generic plan. But as a digital player, you can actually customize every person's journey. You know, based on the customer's past browsing experience or past buying experience, you can slot them, to put it very simply, as a premium customer and somebody as a, let's say, a value customer. So next time when they come to your website, what do you show them? You show the premium to the premium guy, the value to the value guy. So being able to personalize the user's experience. Okay, somebody likes, based on their experience, you know, they like paintings and they don't really look at, let's say, kitchen items. So when you send them recommendations, when you send them notifications, what do you focus on? So personalizing the user's experience is the second important thing for retention. And finally, I think rewards are a fantastic way. Building a loyalty program, building a rewards program is a fantastic way to make retention happen. One of the best rewards program globally is Starbucks. Okay, there is this thing called a Starbucks card. People actually say it is, I think, in the top 10 banks in the US. Okay. Starbucks card has billions of dollars of worth. So what happens in a Starbucks card is you buy a $50 card, $100 card, $200 card, either for yourself or for gifting, okay, to somebody else. So there is all this money you pay upfront to Starbucks, and then over the next 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, you use that card to get coffee. Obviously, the benefit to you that you get from that card is you get slightly better prices, or if you buy 10, you get the 11th free or something like that. But what is happening with Starbucks is having $5, $6, $7 billion worth of cash of customers sitting with them, which will be consumed over the next 3 months or 6 months. Okay, so it's a loyalty program that actually works like a bank. Okay, and it's an amazing retention. Okay, once he has his card, he's not going to go drink at Costa Coffee. Okay, he's not going to go drink at, Third Wave or whatever else the new call. He is going to go drink because he needs to finish those $100 or whatever it is. So I think retention is the number one thing in growth or scaling up, of which, like I said, engagement, personalization, and rewards activity. The next important thing, obviously, when you're scaling is your acquisition engine. The acquisition engine, to my mind, is it's a simple equation. Okay, and it's not a simple equation. The equation is simple, but optimizing the equation is tough. So just think of it this way. There are channels. Channels could be search, SEO, SEM. Channels could be social media marketing. Channels could be organic, like YouTube or Instagram. You could also advertise on YouTube or Instagram. Channels could be affiliate marketing. Channels could be email marketing. Channels could be app notification. Channel could be referral. Okay. Channel could be affiliate marketing. The point that Shubhranshu was making, you put great content and in the end you put a link for your services. Okay. All of these are channels. Great content marketing is a channel. I've just given you 7, 8 different types of channels. Okay. There is a cost to run every channel. Okay. To buy a search keyword, you may pay 50 rupees per keyword. Okay. To write a good piece of content and put a link below it, you might hire a content writer who will write 10 articles for you. So per article, you have to pay 3,000 rupees. Okay. So there's a cost. Referrals may or may not have a cost. Referrals might have a cost that if somebody you refer buys from me, I will give you 5% discount. So the 5% discount is a cost. So think of it. 7, 8, 10 digital channels, and I'm only talking digital. I don't want to complicate it. 7 or 8 digital channels, every channel has a cost. Okay. Associated with the cost, you have a certain reach. How many people does this channel reach? Okay. Based on that channel, based on the reach, there is a visit. If 100 people are reached through the blog, do 10 people come to the website? If 100 people are reached through search engine marketing, do 25 people come to the website? So there is a conversion from the reach to visits, and from visits to final conversions or transactions. And when final transaction happens, you have a certain revenue. Within that you have a margin, and then you have a net margin. The entire thing about the acquisition engine is matching the net margin that you are left with the cost that you identified. That equation is what you need to optimize for. And that equation is different for different industries, it's different for different brands, it's different for different geographies. You have to discover that equation for yourself. If you're spending 100 rupees, okay, are you able to get 200, 300 back, or are you able to get 80 back? Okay. And then if you have 100 rupees and you have 8 channels, where do you put the money? Do you put 80 in SEM, search engine marketing, and 20 in social media marketing? Or do you put 10, 10, 10 in all the 8 examples that I took? Okay. So I think getting that entire equation right, it's a mathematical exercise. Most digital marketers in Bombay today are fundamentally analysts. They're not marketers. Okay. They're guys who are very, very good with numbers, with Excels, with building models, who understand mathematics very well. So just in terms of when you look to hit that scale, you need to have that equation going. Okay. Obviously, there are certain other things like virality and community. For example, community can be a great acquisition engine. Okay. Community can work in retention also. You build a great community of people that you retain, but community can be a great acquisition engine too. For example, so there is this, there's obviously the Royal Enfield Bullet. Okay. So these guys go on rides. Okay. They're all Bullet owners. So they're a community of people, and the retention is if they upgrade their Bullet from whatever they have to the next model or whatever. But often what happens is, because the community exists and because they talk about it, because they go somewhere together, a lot of new people get attracted to it. Okay. It's a community that people want to belong to. So if you make a great community of beautiful homes, okay, these are all, and they talk about it, they post videos, they post pictures, other people want to be part of this to get ideas, to make, and so on. So they can, become part of your community. So community can be a good acquisition tool. And virality is fundamentally content marketing, which goes viral. You had those examples from Amul, etc. Out of every 10 Amul ads, one will go viral. It will come to you through WhatsApp anyway. Okay. And everybody then reminds of, yes, Amul. Okay. So I think acquisition engine, but 9 out of 10 times, please understand that it's a mathematical equation between cost, channel, cost, reach, visitor conversion, transaction conversion, gross margin, net margin cost equation. Okay, that's what it is. And obviously, one of the important things is whenever you're running an acquisition engine, you need to be able to measure it very well. All these numbers that I talked about, these numbers will not pop up. I'm sure Google Analytics will give you some numbers, but you need to set up the tracking and measurement in a way in which you're very, very accurate and you're able to attribute it to the right thing. Okay. And final point I want to tell you is that if you have a great and fantastic acquisition engine running this month, congratulations. There's no guarantee that this will run 30 days from now or 90 days from now. Okay. Because there will be some shift in the market, some competitor will come, some consumer behavior will change, Google will change its algorithm, Facebook will stop sharing data, something will happen and you have to reinvent it all over again. Okay. So it's not a one time and done thing. You need to keep working on this particular thing to keep reinventing yourself. So, yep. I have a bunch of other slides, but I think some of it might be repetitive, and I can see that a lot of you guys are kind of, I think I covered all the important stuff that I wanted to. So I'll take a stop here and check if you have any questions on any of the things that we covered on growth. So building is about building product. Growth is really about taking your product to the market. Okay. So if you just think about the steps, how you build a company. Okay. Obviously the first 2-3 slides are about what should the founder focus on. what are the things that they should watch out for, okay, how should they build their product, okay, and how should they grow it. So that's kind of the approach that I've taken. If you have any questions, happy to answer it. I actually have a bunch of other slides, but I think I've covered the meat of what I wanted to talk to you. Is it getting too technical? Are there any questions somebody wants to ask? Cool. Yeah, I think I'll kind of stop here because I think I've.
Hello, sir. I'm also in the home decor business, and I have like some of my products are really small and some of them are very big. So I'm facing a lot of problems with the logistics because I'll be making a website and I want to use a platform like ShipRocket, but it's extremely expensive. So that is one sector which I'm trying. I've been like struggling with for a very long time, and services like India Post or deliveries, so they are not that reliable. So I don't know what to do. So how did you tackle this? Even if, because I have ranges, like I have lights which are quite big, I have small stools, and I have like really small coasters also. So I have very wide ranges of sizes. So that is something I'm struggling with.
So for furniture, we built our own network I talked to you about. But for non-furniture, especially the small and medium-sized items, we use a third party like ShipRocket. Okay. The difficulty is that when you are smaller, the rates that they offer you, okay, are much steeper. If you have the kind of scale that Pepperfry had last year and the year before that, then the rates get actually very, very competitive. It made more sense for us to go with a third party provider than do it ourselves. Okay. I think the solutions, in my mind, the solution for this is, I would advise against trying to do it yourself, okay, because as a small player, the cost required to put in, are you shipping pan-India or are you shipping in a particular zone? Or, yeah, I think if you're shipping pan-India, you need to partner with these guys. I mean, the only way for you to absorb the cost would be either you take shipping out of your pricing and say shipping is extra. Okay. I know that in India, generally customers don't like to be charged for shipping, but people do that. There are some guys who are beginning to do it. In Pepperfry, we charge for shipping above a certain price point. Below a certain price point, we do it free, but above a certain price point, we charge for shipping. And I think if you're selling a unique item which is not easily available everywhere, the reason for your product to sell is the uniqueness of the product or the uniqueness of your design. It's not so much whether it is 150 rupees more or 150 rupees less. So other way could be to just absorb the cost into your margin. I mean, raise your price so that you can absorb the cost. But yeah, you have to go with a third party. Building an own network will be difficult. Cool, super. Thank you for your questions, at least earlier, if not at the end of this one. Yeah.
Merchant acquisition. As I mentioned earlier, we are a tech platform and we are a seller NP with ONDC. Now, for acquiring merchants, one of the things that we have been kind of thinking is to use the fit on street services. So, just wanted your input on whether does it make sense to kind of work with these fit on street service providers to acquire merchants, or what do you think should be
So I've done large-scale merchant acquisition in two scenarios. One is when we were with eBay. Okay, eBay has this business called cross-border trade. Okay, cross-border trade is fundamentally Indian merchants, but selling on eBay.com to American customers. Okay, the products that are typically sold here are diamonds, jewelry, brass items, high-end leather items, and other arts and crafts, but high-end, sell in dollars. Okay. So originally we tried to run this entire merchant acquisition process through a call center. Okay. But the platform was too complex for the merchants to register themselves and to list their listing. We realized that we need to actually support them to actually build their shop on the platform, to list their items, to put the proper description. So we said if we are anyway doing account management, okay, in person, why not do acquisition also through feet on street? Okay. So we did put a 150 member feet on street. The advantage was all the diamond merchants were in Surat. You know, a lot of the arts and crafts people were in Jaipur and a couple of other parts of Rajasthan. A lot of the brass people were in Moradabad. A lot of the carpets guys were in Banaras, Varanasi. So we created clusters. We created, linen, apparel and handicrafts cluster. We created diamonds cluster, jewelry cluster, and created feet on street with specialized capability to talk to those merchants. Okay. But it made a lot of sense because what happens is these things then get listed on ebay.com. The average selling price is $50, $100. Okay. The margin is 10-15%, but it still, brings you a lot of money, and you're able to recover the cost of the feet on street. Okay. Even at Pepperfry, what we do is we don't have feet on street. We do feet on street, but these are primarily, they're actually call center. The acquisition happens on the phone. Feet on street is just only for confirmed appointments. Okay. So most of the lead generation, everything is online and through webinars and through video calls. So you get a lot of confirmation about interest, intent, willingness, and then the final step is done through a in-person feet on street meeting. So I think the best way to acquire a lot of merchants is blend it, do digital lead generation, do like a webinar based education, do video conferencing based validation, and then final onboarding can be through face-to-face interaction.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks everybody.